Good morning, YouTube. Long time, very long time. Um, let me let me get set up a little bit. This stream got postponed for a couple of days because I got busy over the weekend. Had a lot of household stuff going on, had to be taken care of, and then I had to get some rest. So sorry for that. But on the move, on the way to work. As y'all can see, the title is Superhead says marry at 304. We say no to that. That's common sense. But I wanted to talk about some truth she was saying as far as how you could benefit from a 304, but it has to be a 304 of a certain type, right? It has to be an honest 304. And what I mean by an honest 304? Well, she has to tell you up front who she really is and what she does. You know, um, it's very important she tells you up front what she's currently doing and about her past. See, regular average women, we worry about their past more so than we worry about what they're currently doing. I treat all women the same. I want information about her past, and I want to know what she's currently doing. For one, I don't like to share a woman. For two, you know, I'm not going to give interest, chivalry, um, anything on a courting level to a woman that has anything going on with another man. So, y'all know me. And I teach y'all that dating is a scam, that you should never date. Like, if you don't come across a woman who has nothing going on with another man, she puts herself in a position to be courted by you. She's upfront and honest about her past and what she's currently doing. Whether you want to know her body count, sexual history in general, you know, that's the kind of woman that you court. Dating is a scam because, first and foremost, dating means multiple. They've turned it into a competition. Women have turned it into a game. Women have benefited from it for a long time. So they've taken advantage of it, using guys and stuff like that, and having rosters that rotate women. A man that dates, more power to him. If he wants to spend a lot of money rotating a lot of women, me, I don't see no sense in that. You know, I don't think anybody should date. But, if you're going to mingle. Just be single and mingle. Don't say you're dating. Don't make it seem like dating is a thing to do. We've done a history on dating. We know where it comes from. It comes from whoremonger and whoredom. So, but Superhead said marry a 304. No, no. Uh, you can't even marry an average woman. Why go even further to marry a 304 who at any given time is promiscuous, um, beyond the risk, well above the risk of an average woman. Um, these states, from state to state, federal government, they're just now starting to get marriage laws to where there's some safeguards and protection for a spouse that does right and the man or the breadwinner. But in general, for the spouse that does right, they're just now putting laws in place because they knew that they have messed up. They have destroyed the opportunity to build a family with these crazy marriage laws, turn it into a, you know, turned it into a cash cow, especially divorce court and family court. And then they created these monsters of women who are taking advantage of the situation. So I get her point that you could be with a woman where you could get sex on demand, the kind of sex you want. If you're not being fulfilled sexually, if you have sexual desires a little bit outside the norm, I ain't saying be crazy freaky or too freaky. You know, if you like a little porno style sex, you know, you need a certain kind of woman for that, right? I get that part. You know, now she mentioned guys sneaking around, risking their families and stuff like that. You know, some guys are whoremongers. You know, that's the male version of a hoe. Some guys are whoremongers, right? And they want to sleep with a lot of women regardless. You know, it's one thing that you see a younger woman, you're attracted to a younger woman, you've been with a woman for a while. I've seen guys throughout the years, older guys way older than me, when I was a teenager and stuff like that, be married, and they go find a younger woman. I don't think much as far as like sexual fetishes and fantasies went on with that. I just think that was just a stronger attraction to beauty, youth. Um, but I do agree that if you like anything close to porno style sex and you can't get that from your partner or your spouse, you know, that's something you should establish up front. You know, I tell men all the time, you know, it's not just about the woman. You got to explain yourself and have conversations up front about what you need, especially in the bedroom, right? Now, I don't condone no crazy stuff. You know, I don't condone no crazy stuff. You know, a little spicy, high energy, heterosexual sex, cool. Like, if you're finna bondage, if you into other kind of fetishes and stuff, you know, if you're not truthful about your true orientation, then you know I don't condone all that. You know what I'm saying? But again, you know, there's someone for everybody. But everybody has to be upfront, has these hard conversations, explain themselves. You know, just be raw and uncut and truthful. Now, I want to tell you what you can do with an honest 304. Superhead is a dishonest 304. She's giving you truth, but then she's crashing out, really. This is a crash out. You know, um, regardless if you want to overlook the fact that she's female and they get emotional and females talk, nobody is exempt from improper behavior. But with this crash out, you know, she's tried everything. She's exploited her sexuality probably nothing short of your favorite porn star. It's just the fact that she started out in rap videos and she's just been through the industry backwards and forwards. She really didn't go into being tied into porn on a regular basis. I think maybe a couple porns here and there, and that was it. Didn't make a career out of it. She tried something else. But she crashed out before because her book was a crash out. You know, it's just like women who date a lot of men, sleep with a lot of men, open their legs to a lot of men, that they get to a certain point and they want to be compensated. So they want to make the next guy pay, right? Usually the nice guy or the rich guy, whatever guy they can get to meet their demands because they didn't get what they wanted early on, or they let too many men have their womb for free, you know, or without investment, right? Well, Superhead, when she gets to a certain point where she can't get what she wants out of a man, she can talk that she's this freaky, sexual, fulfilling woman all she wants. But the thing is, when everybody's done had you, you know, that's still going to be a consequence, right? And when your money gets funny too behind that, when you can't get what you want from a man, particularly money, or you can't get a commitment from a man, you crash out. So her book was a crash out. And another thing is, me personally, I don't like snitches. You know, I don't like snitches. Like, because you failed at being a 304 and not getting the amount of money you want, not getting the either commitment or cooperation from a man or men that you wanted, for giving up all the sex that you gave up, you crashed out and snitched on somebody you thought was a good idea to sell it, you know. And again, I don't like snitches, but you know, this is an example of what happens, not just with the 304 with average women. They give up too much sex for free, and they give it up to the wrong guys. And not only that, they want to have fun too. They do it on their own accord as well, and they don't admit to that. Women, when they get to a certain mind state, when they're single or when they develop some type of woman empowerment, sexual freedom, feminism, have a bad response to a couple of guys, they want to sow their royal oats and be like a man because a man did this and that, you know, they go out and they have fun. What they call fun is actually also what they call a hoe phase, but then not necessarily, it's not a phase either. If you're a hoe, you're a hoe. If you decide to be a hoe, be a hoe. This is where the honesty comes in, right? You know, don't say you want to be like a man. Don't say you want to sow your royal oats. Don't say because men do this and do that. If you want to do that, be honest about it. The origin of the dishonest hoe, well, the standard of a dishonest hoe, a dishonest hoe has been around for a long time. Uh, the oldest profession has yielded whether you got honest or dishonest hoes. But the highest standard of a dishonest hoe is a chameleon, what I invented. And it went through social media, you know, YouTube and everywhere else. You know, again, I introduced this term on Red Supreme TV, right? But the chameleon was based around sorority chicks, college chicks, AKAs. A lot of guys don't know that these women in college, um, they get ran through. You think the average hood chick, you think uh, some ghetto female or some regular woman, you know, the college chicks was the chicks that get ran through because they experiment. They've been taught to experiment. They've been taught to, you know, go experience stuff. And in some cases, when you get back to sorority chicks, particularly, it was a big news. It was a big news headline around 2016, 2017, maybe 2015, where HBCU that was full of AKAs were teaching prostitution and, you know, using men and using sex to get what they want, right? So, of course, I've dealt with AKA, and I had a lot of guy friends uh, that also had dealt with sorority chicks, and they just don't want nothing to do with it. So you find out that these so-called college-educated chicks, you know, they have high body counts. They have had trains ran on them. They've had fun at parties, college parties and stuff like that. Dealt with different dudes, slept with different dudes. So A dishonest hoe, you don't want no parts of that because they masquerade around like they're a good girlfriend, a good fiance, good wife material. You don't want that, right? So what can you do with an honest 304? One who tells you up front that, hey, look, uh, I need a lot of sex. I slept with a lot of men, or you know, she says in her past that she been ran through. She's been kind of laid back and quiet or something for the here lately, whatever. But the main thing is you want to find out, well, what's she currently doing? Are you sleeping with dudes now? What you got going on? Have you been selling? Has it been pay for play? What's been going on? Right now, we'll talk about the streetwalker and the pay for play um, here shortly. But well, let me address that right now. Give me a second because I'm driving. Let me address that right now. The streetwalker, you know what it is. All out prostitute, which I recommend that I definitely recommend any woman selling herself, in that manner, pay for play or streetwalker, like you avoid, you stay away from. It's just too much of a health risk, right? So let me be clear on that. Have there been women who probably done that, recovered from that, and stopped doing that? It doesn't mean that they've been in relationships or they've been dating or proceed like an average woman. They kind of probably been isolated. They probably found enough money and resources to get themselves together to isolate themselves and function just a little bit on a normal level. But that's rare. Uh, my advice is to avoid that. Now we're talking about maybe a structured sex worker like in porn or something like that, or a stripper that hasn't really been out here prostituting like that. Still a sex worker though, nonetheless. But and we're talking about an average woman that has a high body count that is a nympho and has admitted to sleeping around because she loves sex. You know, um, they're only good to be a mistress or a concubine, never a wife. You know, any woman that admits that she is a 304 or was a former 304, she definitely doesn't qualify to be a wife. That's off the table. Most average women don't qualify to be a wife. Marriage is a scam, dating is a scam. These women don't really reveal who they are. You know, most of them don't. Very few do. You have to respect the honesty if you do get one that's honest about things. So, what do I mean by a mistress or a concubine? Well, I told y'all, I believe it was in 2022. I believe I told y'all about having a mistress or a concubine, avoiding having to date, avoid being married. And if you're single, and you don't want to go through a lot of trouble of doing a bunch of dating or mingling, going out, and all that stuff. Like a lot of that stuff to me is pointless. It's too much for nothing. It's not really worth it. But and then it's the kind of person that you are. I'm not a person that's getting high and drunk out of my mind and I'm out to 4 or 5 in the morning on a Friday or Saturday night, or any given night. You know what I'm saying? I'm well structured, disciplined. So I don't have time for that. Right. And if I don't want to go out and court a woman, find a woman that I can have, uh, uh, first and foremost, something mutual with, genuine with, then if I must resort to needing companionship and something in the bedroom from time to time, you know, there are things that you don't have to look at the oldest profession in order to meet that goal. So if you go back in tradition and culture, not just America, but just the world in general, you had the mistress and the concubine. The concubine's in the Bible. And it is a position. It's a traditional position for a woman who was unqualified to be married, yet she does not want to continue to not be covered, or she doesn't want to deal with multiple men. So just like your non-disclosures, your prenups, you can contract for a mistress or a concubine. You got to have the resources and money to do it because all women are expensive, whether you're dating, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're married, whether you got a family. Women cost. No man does not proceed with any kind of dealings with a woman without cost. Uh, these guys that are so-called players, these guys that are so-called pimps, are liars. Um, even if you run a store, you have to pay for goods and products in order to resell them. You have to invest in them. These pimps, players that they talk about, they don't give money to women and stuff like that, man. They need to stop because you can't put out a bad product. Your product has to be clean first and foremost, healthy, clean, hygienic. Has to look a certain way. You have to invest. So don't let these guys lie to you, right? And on a short note, you know, over the years, I've thought about how they try to shame a guy what they think is a trick. But I do believe there's a difference between being a trick and transactional. Transactional means that you have some discipline and control and you're being creative. You're devising something to benefit you, and you have everything in place. You've calculated it, done the math, you have everything in place. Tricking is uncontrolled, too random. You have a habit. You have an addiction. So that's numero uno. The other thing about a pimp is, to me, pimps are stupid because pimps, if you acquire one or more women willing to go out and have sex and pay for the business, put money into a business by giving out sex, why don't you have a bunny ranch? Why don't you go somewhere where prostitution is legal? Why don't you start a corporation, take some money, invest in a location? Why aren't you in Vegas with a bunny ranch? Why are you trying to do illegal prostitution and exploitation of prostitution on the street? So to me, pimps are dumb because they can acquire a number of women willing to give up sex. They can even start a porn company. They can do porn, start a porn company. They can do bunny ranches. They can do shit legally and they choose not to because they want to look like something in the street and be fancy and flashy, drawing attention to themselves. Dumbest shit I ever seen in my life. Reminds me of the dope game. Instead of getting the money and getting the fuck out, flipping it, cleaning it up. You think you're gonna go all these years with this reputation and this fame and this glory, and which is it's fake. But giving an honest 304 mistress or a concubine position is what you can do with them. So as long as she's been up front, so as long as she doesn't deal with other men, that's the number one requirement. She can't deal with other men, and she also has to abide by, you know what I'm saying, the agreement that y'all set forth, whatever you deem is suitable. Me, like, I don't hold anybody hostage. I don't believe in that, and I don't believe in being a tyrant. But I do believe that structure is everything. You know, so she has to know, hey, look, we have a certain structure. Okay, number one, no other men. Number two, you're free to go anytime that you want. You're not trapped. You're not held hostage. I'll never be mean or abusive to you. Number three, you get provisions and resources because traditionally mistresses and concubines got provisions and resources. And you explain, hey, this is what you'll get. You know, now that's up to you how you want to design it. I think about the basic things: food, clothing, and shelter, transportation, something along those norms. So, and of course, sex on demand. Why not? Definitely that. But yeah, so I want you guys to know that that is the way to go about things. Um, that's the way you should do it. Base the provisions and resources around food, clothing, and shelter and transportation. No other men. It's not a hostile situation. You're not into anything illegal or aggressive. But that's the way to go. We can get more in detail about it. I got to get going. So it's your boy Zulu Gunner. Like, share, subscribe, comment. I'm going to tap back in with y'all later. Hopefully you got something out of this. And yeah, we'll talk soon. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank y'all.